Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2015 Volkswagen Golf TDI. Now, we've test driven quite a few of these cars here in the last year, a lot of different TDI models across their range, and so we have a lot of different individual test drives that you can click on down in the information section. But while we're looking at this car today, one of the discussions we're going to have is the argument for the TDI engine, the turbo diesel. So if you're someone who's questioning whether it's right for you, well, stay tuned.
The 2015 Volkswagen Golf, which is the star of our show today, is all new this year, known as the Golf 7 or 7th generation. It's available in both a 5-door hatches or SEL is here, as well as a larger sport wagon model. Built on the all-new MQB architecture from Volkswagen, the new Golf is a bit larger than before, yet lighter in weight. It's also safer than ever, with top ratings from both the IIHS and the federal government in their crash testing. The Golf is available with several power choices in addition to the TDI, which include turbocharged gasoline engines, the 1.8 TSI and the 2.0 TSIs, which are found in the high-performance GTI and Golf R. It's also available as an electric car, the e-Golf. Under the hood of ours is the all-new for 2015 2-liter turbo diesel engine. It has 150 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque. In our tester, it's rated by the EPA at 31 mpg city, 43 mpg highway, and 36 mpg combined. But we'll get to what it actually achieves in a few minutes.
Now, full disclosure here before we get too far into this, I am a Volkswagen aficionado. I have owned TDIs before the turbo diesels, and so I'm very familiar with them. I have a little bit of an affinity for them, and so that's probably going to come through here. I'm not entirely fair and balanced when it comes to these cars as a journalist. So most of what you're going to hear today is a very pro-turbo diesel argument, but I'm not completely blind. We'll be talking about some of the downsides as well as the upsides. Now, obviously, the very first thing that everyone wants to know when it comes to optioning for a diesel or not is, what's the fuel economy? Because, well, that's what most people buy them for, although there are plenty of other reasons. So let's talk about fuel economy here. This particular car is rated into the 40s, depending on which model you get, for highway MPG. The average city combined and highway is in the mid-30s. At least that's what the EPA sticker says. Now, the EPA has a testing procedure which is very strict. It's very cookie cutter, and my experience with these diesel cars is the EPA numbers you see on the sticker are not always accurate, which is to say they don't always reflect what you can actually do in the real world with diesel cars, and that actually works in your favor because the Volkswagens that I test quite often with the TDI, I typically see quite a bit more in real world driving in miles per gallon than what the sticker says. Now, this car here, I've had it for a week now. I've averaged 46 mpg on the tank. That's city and highway, air conditioner on, mountains, highways, city, a little bit of everything. And so 46 mpg, that is literally 10 more than what the sticker promised for combined rating. So you can get very, very good fuel economy with these, and fuel economy that is on par with what many hybrid cars offer. Drivability is another question that always comes up when people are asking about diesels. They say, well, I hear they're slow and noisy. Well, let's be honest about a few things. Slow and noisy, that describes most hybrid cars, doesn't it? I mean, most hybrid cars have a CVT transmission. When you really push the gas, get into them going up a hill, they sound like a leaf blower. They're not that fast, and they're very rarely rewarding to drive. Now, compare that to a turbo diesel car. In most cases, you've got oodles of torque. And I mean the kind of torque that you feel, it pushes your back into the seat when you really put your foot down. And they normally always come with a regular transmission, regular automatics, regular manuals. So you have a traditional driving experience that's intuitive. It doesn't feel like some kind of a science experiment. And in the case of the Volkswagen TDIs, you've got the DSG transmission. Same thing you get in a GTI high performance car, or you can have a 6-speed manual. Either way, You get a top quality driving experience, a lot of torque, and yes, there is a little bit of extra noise associated with a diesel under hard acceleration, but cruising along like we're doing right now on the highway, do you hear a diesel? I don't. The price of diesel fuel has been sort of a contentious topic here in the last decade because while historically diesel has always been less per gallon than gasoline, in the last 10 years it's actually been more expensive, 30, maybe sometimes 40% more expensive than gasoline. And well, that's a lot, especially when you consider the fact that well, that's about the same amount of extra mileage you get with a diesel engine. So many people that argue against diesels were able to say, well, shoot, yeah, you get more fuel economy, but you're paying more for the fuel. It's a wash. And well, in some cases they were correct. But historically, diesel has always been cheaper. And today, well, in most parts of the country, it's back at parity with the price of gas, if not a little bit less than regular gasoline, which is as it should be. It costs less to refine, it's much easier to refine, and there's really no reason on God's green earth that should be more expensive than gas. Unless you believe in the conspiratorial ways of the man, which wants to keep diesel down. The next argument to consider is the cost of the car, and that's always a big one because diesel cars cost more. They do. And a lot of times what happens is the manufacturers will mask the cost of that diesel engine by only offering it a more expensive, higher trim level. In the case of the Golf here, it is offered in the same trim levels across the board as the base gasoline engine. And in the case of this car, the cost to step up to the diesel is anywhere between $1,000 and $2,500 depending on the trim level you choose. Maintenance. Yes, that's the dirty little subject that diesel car owners don't usually want to talk about because the truth is maintenance is a little bit more with a diesel car. And it's not just because it costs more, it's because you must do it. Diesels can be very reliable, they can last forever, but you do need to take care of them. You have to follow those maintenance schedules to the letter, and I'm talking about things like timing belt changes, usually right around 100,000 miles, give or take, depending on the car. You must, absolutely must replace the timing belt or the timing chain, because if you don't, well, that diesel is going to cost you a lot more down the road. But that said, if you keep a car only during its warranty period, meaning that if you trade in and out of cars every couple years, or if you're just leasing one, really never going to be an issue for you. Now, if you're someone who's going to buy a diesel car, keep it for 100, 200, maybe even 300,000 miles, yes, maintenance is something you need to factor in. Oil changes typically cost more because these almost always use synthetic oils or a top quality oil that your dealership's going to want to put in it for you. Filters cost more, so there's just a lot of different angles to it that do add cost, and something that you should, if you're truly doing a hard pencil on a car like this, you need to find out from the dealership what that's going to be. Now, if you keep these cars long term, way out of warranty, you don't go to the dealer. You find yourself a good shop that you trust, that does your work, because the dealership, never your best deal. I'm sorry to say it. So we've established that it does cost more to buy a diesel car, and it does cost more to maintain one. So what you have to do to reconcile that is look at how much fuel you're going to save, and that's taking the miles you're going to drive every year, how long you're going to keep the car, do a bit of a math problem and figure out on today's fuel prices how much money that'll save you over the lifetime of the car. And then you can look at what the extra cost of the vehicle is and see if it pencils, because in most cases diesels do pencil, especially now the fuel prices are back down in parity. So if you're penciling things out and the extra cost of buying the diesel car, maybe the extra maintenance, doesn't pencil out against the fuel savings, think about this: resale value. diesel cars typically have a much higher resale value at the end of their life, or at the end of your experience with them, than a gasoline-powered comparison. So if you look at a 2010 Volkswagen Golf on KBB.com, check me on this. 100,000 miles, 4-door, similar equipment, you're going to find that the TDI model has a resale value almost $2,800 more than the gasoline-powered model. What that tells you is you're going to get the extra money you spent buying the diesel back when you get rid of the car. Now, another old saw that you often hear is diesels are dirty, they smell. Now look, folks, I'm wearing a white shirt here, okay? I'm Mr. Clean. All kidding aside though, modern diesel engines, they have to pass the same smog test gasoline engines do. They have to meet the same emission standards other cars have to in states like California, Massachusetts. So they're clean. And even in Europe, well, they've had to be pretty clean too. And so the modern diesel engine today has so much going on in terms of exhaust after treatment, smog controls, and even chemical treatments in the after part of its exhaust system that actually neutralize some of the worst chemicals that are in the exhaust, such that at the end of the day, not only is there not soot, there's rarely smell, but the dirty chemicals that used to be in diesel exhaust really almost are non-existent. It's as clean, if not cleaner, than many gasoline cars. Of all the reasons that you buy a diesel car that we've talked about, the last one is the fact they simply last longer. If you're somebody who likes to keep a car for 100,000, 200,000 miles or more, a diesel car is a good way to go because of the fact that just by virtue of the way these engines operate, they're built to a higher standard. The blocks, the heads, the crankshafts, all the parts in them are made out of a higher quality material. The side effect of that is they last longer. Well, folks, there you have it, all my one-sided opinions and crazy ideas as to why I think diesel cars are a nice option to have. Now that said, if you want more in-depth test drive information on the Volkswagen family of TDI cars, check the links down below in the information section there. A number of different vehicles we've tested this year with the TDI, as well as a pretty cool video that goes in depth on the engine itself and really explains how it works. Now, is this car perfect? No. There's a lot to like here, but this infotainment system's still a little bit fussy to use, and this interior, while very good, I still think could use some polish on a few of the finishes and things like that. Now, this car, the Golf family, it is on the testdriven.tv I'd buy list for 2015, so I think that's pretty good praise. I'm Sam Hamar for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Little personal story. Actually, one of the reasons I'm kind of a Volkswagen and diesel aficionado is because my first new car was a 1984 Volkswagen Rabbit GTI, and that car was so much fun when I owned it. In fact, it really is on my top 5 list of best cars I've ever owned. So there is a fondness in my heart for these cars. And one thing that was very, very interesting about that car, and if you're familiar with older Volkswagens, you'll know, the car would corner on 3 wheels quite regularly. If you were up on a really tight, windy mountain road and throwing it in the curves, the thing would quite routinely be on 3 wheels. And it wasn't something that felt scary when you were driving the car. It always felt quite controlled. In fact, unless you knew it, you wouldn't know it. But people would always come up to me and go, "Hey, did you know that your back wheel was off the ground?" Well, today, these cars really don't do that anymore. Modern chassis design, it just doesn't happen. But it was always sort of a neat novelty.